I stood there at gate 24B, clutching my carry-on and printed itinerary like a damn fool, while Chase, all gelled hair and teeth, looked me up and down like I was gum on his coal hawns. "No seat reserved for you," he said, loud enough for the rest of the team to hear. There was a chuckle from Jenna in events. Someone behind me whispered, "Wait, is she not coming?" I felt every eye on me, dozens of corporate zombies in matching polos and branded lanyards, pretending not to stare while devouring the scene like it was happy hour gossip. My mouth went dry. I blinked at the flight monitor, still half believing this had to be some sort of mistake. I'd booked the charter block myself. I'd coordinated every single hotel room, dietary restriction, welcome bag, transportation detail, and speaker cue sheet. I had the backups printed in color-coded folders. I double-checked Chase's own travel profile 3 times because the man couldn't remember his TSA pre-check number if it was tattooed on his forehead. And now he was looking at me like I was some intern who'd wandered into the wrong terminal. "Chase," I said calmly, "my itinerary is right here. I was confirmed on this flight," and he held up a finger and cut me off like I was Alexa malfunctioning. "Yeah, Ops didn't sign off your name on the final list," he said, dragging out each word with that smug, condescending rhythm he always used when he was trying to sound managerial. "I guess you didn't make the cut. Maybe next time." The bile crawled up my throat. This retreat, the whole Hawaiian spectacle, was the culmination of 6 months of planning. It wasn't just another corporate getaway. It was the capstone to secure a 10-year extension with our biggest client. $240 million in renewals, and the event was my design, my execution, my goddamn legacy. Chase had swooped in 2 months ago with a title and no qualifications beyond being somebody's cousin, then immediately started yanking credit like it was Halloween candy. As I stood there, humiliated and stranded at the gate, he turned to the others like nothing happened. "Group A, let's move," he barked, already herding them toward boarding. People averted their eyes. Some looked sympathetic. None stepped in. Corporate solidarity in action. Don't rock the boat, especially when the VP's got the megaphone. My hand didn't shake as I pulled out my phone. I didn't scream. I didn't chase him down. I didn't cry, though that part I wouldn't have judged myself for. I just scrolled to the one contact that mattered, Alan R. McNally, CEO of our client company, and the man whose signature made our MSA gold-plated. I tapped out one line. "Please confirm if our team lead has changed under the MSA." Then I hit send. Before we go further, if you're still listening and you're one of the 97% who haven't subscribed, it would mean the world if you hit that button. A like or comment goes a long way, too. It really helps the team bring more of these real stories to life. All right, back to the mess. Chase didn't realize it yet, but I'd built a trap months ago. Not out of spite, out of necessity. I knew exactly how replaceable they saw me. I'd watched senior women get pushed out with champagne and lies too many times not to hedge my bets. That master service agreement, it had my name in black and white. Clause 14.2. All primary operations liaisons must be present at all key engagements unless otherwise agreed upon in writing by the client. And I made damn sure there was no such writing. The plane hadn't even taken off, but the cracks were forming. I could see it already. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't dared entertain. Not fear, Not rage, but calm. Let him fly to paradise. I was already digging the sand out from under his castle. The gate emptied out, leaving me standing there with nothing but the hum of the terminal and a cup of cold coffee that suddenly tasted like humiliation. Their plane took off 20 minutes later. I watched it through the window, this shiny silver bird carrying a parade of people who had no idea they were flying straight into a contractual buzzsaw. Chase, most of all. I could almost picture him grinning in 3A, champagne flute in hand, basking in the glow of leadership optics, while I, the supposed nobody he'd left behind, was already putting my first chess piece on the board. The call came less than 2 hours after departure. I was still at the airport cafe, staring blankly at my laptop screen, when my work phone buzzed with a notification from our compliance portal. Incoming inquiry, external legal counsel. That was fast. I clicked. The subject line made my chest tighten. MSA clause, clarification, personnel continuity. They hadn't even checked into the hotel yet, and the client's legal team was already knocking. They wanted to ensure all designated personnel listed in Exhibit C were in attendance at the scheduled engagement. Translation: someone tipped them off. I hadn't told them I'd been cut from the trip, but my one-line message to Alan had been enough. They were suspicious, and suspicion was exactly what I needed. I opened my archive. Years of notes, drafts, red lines, and then, carefully, deliberately, I began forwarding selected sections of the Master Service Agreement to our internal compliance inbox. The one every department head knew was monitored by our general counsel and flagged for board review. Clause 14.2 went first, highlighted in yellow. All personnel designated as operational leads in Exhibit C shall be present at all major client engagements. Any unilateral reassignment or omission must be approved in writing by client prior to the event. I added one short comment under the forwarded document. Seeking clarification on applicability to current event. No accusations. No hysteria. Just enough context to light the fuse. My laptop chimed again. This time it was social media. I shouldn't have clicked, but curiosity won. And there he was, Chase, smug and oblivious, posting a photo from first class with the rest of the execs. Everyone holding up glasses, faces plastered with fake joy, captioned, "Leadership in Paradise. Here's to sealing the next decade." I almost laughed. Leadership? The man couldn't negotiate a vendor invoice without crashing a payment system, but he was too busy playing influencer to realize he'd just published photographic evidence of a breach in progress. I screenshot it, of course, twice. Once for my personal archive, once for the folder I'd labeled Post-Departure Review. By mid-afternoon, the rumblings inside the company had started. A senior analyst I trusted from finance texted me. "What the hell happened? Legal is asking who authorized the travel manifest." A second message followed 5 minutes later. I heard Alan's team might pull the Q4 payment, something about breach language. Good. Let them sweat. Let them finally see the difference between pretty PowerPoint slides and actual operational integrity. They'd mocked me for being too process-driven, for insisting on contract adherence, for treating the MSA like a Bible. But that boring paperwork was the only thing standing between our company and a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. I leaned back in the stiff airport cafe chair and took a long, slow breath. The humiliation from that morning still burned, but now it was morphing into something sharper. Not rage, but resolve. I wasn't going to explode or storm into HQ demanding justice. That's what they expected. Instead, I was going to sit perfectly still while the weight of their arrogance dragged them under. Because Clause 14.2 wasn't a footnote. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a legally binding condition worth hundreds of millions. And Chase, with his selfie sticks and smug smiles, had just tripped over it in designer loafers. The plane was over the Pacific now, gliding toward a resort that was about to become a legal battlefield. And me? I was right where I needed to be, grounded, invisible, and holding every page that could tear their little vacation apart. By the time Chase and the crew touched down in Maui, I imagined they expected to be draped in leis, sipping overpriced Mai Tais poolside, and posting more nauseating team-building selfies under some corny caption like, "Client love." But that's not what greeted them. Alan McNally, the client's CEO, the man who never showed up anywhere without a golf club or a 3-minute agenda, walked straight into the grand Ka'anapali lobby, flanked by 2 in-house council reps. No smile, no small talk. Just a slim leather folder tucked under his arm like a scalpel waiting to cut. The retreat welcome team, probably still glowing from Chase's pre-trip vision call, offered him a badge and a fruity drink. Alan didn't even break stride. He asked one question. "Where's Olivia Mathers?" I wasn't there to see Chase's face, but God, I've played that moment 1,000 times in my head. From what I heard later, he stuttered, blinked a lot, then tried the old name-drop defense. "Oh, she's back stateside, handling back-end support. But we've got Tyler from BizDev and Jenna from Creative here, full coverage." Alan didn't even blink, just handed over a printed copy of the MSA, turned to page 47, and tapped Clause 14.2 like it was a courtroom cross-examination. "Was this clause revised recently?" Chase mumbled something about logistics and resource allocation, but it didn't matter. Alan wasn't there for explanations. He handed the paper back and said, "We'll be in touch shortly," then walked off to find his legal team. No badge, no drink, no ceremony. Half a world away, I was sitting in my apartment in sweats, hair in a claw clip, reheating soup I didn't even want when my work calendar dinged. Subject: Urgent Contract Breach Review. Attendees: General Counsel, Senior Compliance Officer, Director of Client Services. 3:00 p.m. PST. No subject line has ever felt more like a shot of espresso to the chest. I opened the invite, reread the names, and noticed something else, something small but sharp. At the same time, I was scheduled to speak. There had been a previously booked session between Chase's team and the client's CFO for Q4 financial alignment. That meeting? Canceled. Not rescheduled, not delayed, just vanished. I didn't need confirmation. I knew exactly what had happened. Clause 14.2 had officially been flagged as a material breach risk. The moment I was cut from that plane, the company had cracked its own foundation. And the CFO, the same man who once told me during a site visit, "You're the only person from your side who actually knows what the hell's going on," wasn't about to waste his time playing damage control with Chase. He was pulling his resources and redirecting them to where actual continuity lived. With me. There's a special kind of satisfaction that comes when you've been called dramatic, difficult, too meticulous, and then watch the entire edifice collapse exactly where you said it would. Back in Maui, Chase was scrambling. I could feel it in the email timestamps, the flurry of "need to clarify," "can you confirm?" "What's the latest on clause 14.2?" all frantic, all avoidant. Not one single person had the spine to say it outright. We fucked up. And me? I didn't gloat, didn't post anything, didn't tell a soul. I just cleared my afternoon and brewed a fresh cup of tea. Because paradise was starting to feel like litigation. And I was just getting comfortable. The first Slack leak came in around 9:17 a.m. I wasn't even at my desk yet, just brushing my teeth, watching the kettle start to steam, when my phone buzzed with a DM from Kara in HR. Not sure if you saw this, but your name's all over legal chat this morning. You okay? I opened the screenshot she sent and nearly choked on my toothpaste. It was a thread from the Legal and Compliance channel, and right in the middle of it was a message from Brandon, one of our senior compliance officers. Wait, who actually signed off on removing Olivia from the Hawaii Manifest? Was that cleared through client channels? Clause 14.2 specifically names her. There were no answers in the thread, just a slow-motion meltdown. You could almost see the tumbleweed of accountability roll across the screen. One emoji reaction, then another, then silence. By 10:03, there were already a dozen backdoor messages flying around. Kara again? Someone just asked if you were on leave or terminated? What the hell is going on? Exactly what I wanted them to ask. I sat down at my desk, same sweats, same tea, same deliberately calm breathing, and opened my external backup drive. I'd kept a mirror of every planning doc from the last 6 months, not out of paranoia, out of necessity. I'd seen what happened to women like me when things went sideways. If you didn't have receipts, you got rewritten. First, I pulled the email chain from April where Chase suggested removing non-customer-facing personnel from the trip to Streamline Optics. I replied, politely but firmly, "Please note, per clause 14.2 of our MSA, I am required to be present unless the client provides written approval otherwise." 3 minutes later, Brandon from Legal replied, "Understood, clause noted, no removal without client sign-off." I screenshot that exchange and saved it as clause 14.2 acknowledged.pdf. Then I moved on to the calendar invites, the vendor chain of custody logs, and the speaker packet approvals, all with my name listed as primary coordinator, all time-stamped, all traceable. I put them in a new folder called Continuity Evidence. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I wanted to control when it was proven. Around noon, the bigger shoe dropped. I got a forwarded message from a friend on the finance team, no subject line, just 3 words in the body. "It's happening now." Attached was an internal memo from the client's procurement officer. Subject, suspension of payment. Invoice. Number 11983, B. Amount, 3.2 mets. Reason, pending clarification of contractual adherence and personnel continuity. They'd pulled the plug. Not a full termination. Not a lawsuit. Just a surgical, devastating pause. Enough to freeze the quarter. Enough to make every exec at HQ start checking their pulse. I could practically hear the scramble from my quiet apartment. The whispered huddles. The panicked meetings behind glass doors. The first time you threaten a contract like that, it sends a message. The second time, it becomes precedent. And somewhere in the swirl of all that chaos, I sat in total silence, watching it unfold, with the cold clarity of someone who no longer needed to yell to be heard. They had the clause, they had the context, and thanks to one forgotten reply, buried in Legal's inbox from 3 months ago, they had the record. They knew. And now they had to decide, eat the breach or make things right. Either way, they'd be doing it on my terms. Breakfast at the resort was supposed to be a highlight. Beachfront view, branded pastries, fresh squeezed ego on every plate. The staff had even rolled out custom napkins embossed with the client's logo and our company's tagline, "Building Legacies Together." Cute. Almost ironic now. From what I was told later, the team had just settled into their second round of mimosas when Alan McNally stepped into the open-air conference room like a thundercloud in a sea of flip-flops. He didn't smile, didn't greet, didn't even grab a plate. He walked straight up to Chase, who was in the middle of a half-joke about how he barely survived the red-eye, and dropped a single ice-cutting sentence. "Is there an issue with the MSA?" The entire table froze. Forks halfway to mouths, phones hovering mid-scroll. Even the server with the mango tray stopped like he'd heard God speak. Chase, bless his squirming little soul, laughed. Not a confident laugh. A weird, breathy stutter like he was trying to buy time from the universe. "Oh, no issues. All good. I mean, unless you've heard something. Ha." Alan stared at him for 3 seconds that felt like 3 years. Then he nodded, said, "Understood," and turned away without another word. Straight to the legal team seated at the back of the room, their folders already open. The silence didn't end when he walked off. It lingered. Chase cleared his throat and tried to resume his sentence, but nobody remembered what it was. Jenna from Creative whispered something to Tyler from Events. Tyler immediately pulled out his phone. By lunch, a photo of the moment had leaked into Slack. Alan standing over Chase, expression unreadable, while Chase looked like a high schooler being asked to define integrity in front of the principal. No caption necessary, though someone added one anyway. Clause 14.2'd. It spread like wildfire. By 2 p.m., it had been turned into a meme and posted on the company intranet's water cooler channel. By 3, it was screenshotted into group chats I wasn't even part of anymore. One anonymous burner account even made a joke bingo card titled, "Chase's Excuses for Why Olivia's Missing." My personal favorite, she had food poisoning from being too prepared. What struck me most wasn't the public embarrassment. That would have come with or without the meme. It was the fact that no one defended him. Not one of those executives he'd courted, flattered, bulldozed into this trip, said a word in his favor. Not one raised a hand to interrupt Alan. Not one even looked like they wanted to be associated with whatever radioactive sludge he was standing in. And me? I didn't post. I didn't comment. I didn't even log into Slack that day. Instead, I took a walk. Through the park near my apartment, past the little corner coffee shop where I'd written the first draft of the retreat plan 6 months ago. I walked slow, letting the wind bite my face, letting it all sink in. I'd spent 3 years building that client relationship, block by block, night after night, budget by spreadsheet. And now, finally, the right people were starting to see who held it all together. The truth didn't need me to shout. It was standing on its own, towering over Chase like a lighthouse over a drowning man. They say real chaos doesn't start with a scream. It starts with a spreadsheet. And at HQ that morning, the forecast spreadsheet went red. Bright, burning red. Someone from finance tried to refresh it twice before realizing the numbers weren't glitching. They were reacting. The $240 million renewal, the one that was supposed to anchor the next 2 fiscal years, had been placed on hold. The procurement freeze from the client's side triggered a dozen cascading failures in our internal systems. Targets shattered. Commission models vaporized. Departmental budgets that had already been overspent on Chase's retreat vision were now exposed for what they were: reckless, unbacked indulgence. Within an hour, finance was in full damage control mode. Email after email flooded inboxes. Subject lines like urgent, client hold impact, and what does clause 14.2 mean in practice, started bouncing between legal, operations, and the board. And somewhere in the middle of it, someone had the gall to forward me an invite. Subject: immediate guidance requested time. 11:30 a.m. PST. Attendees: General Counsel, CFO, VP of Risk. No subject line fluff, no hope you're well, just pure corporate desperation. I joined the call from my living room, no makeup, tea in hand, window cracked open to let the October air remind me who I was before all this. 3 heads blinked to life on my screen, all visibly tense. No one even tried to fake a smile. Olivia, General Counsel began, his voice tight. We understand there have been complications. If you were to advise us now, purely in a consulting capacity, what would you suggest? I didn't flinch. I didn't smirk. I just answered with the same deliberate cadence I used to read contract clauses aloud in boardrooms full of people who thought I was too junior to lead negotiations. Start with an apology, I said. Then let me know which version of the renewal you'd like me to review. The one with Chase's leadership structure, or the one that still includes continuity provisions you all previously agreed to. Silence. Not even a throat clear. I let it hang. That was the power of the pause. The kind of silence you earn, not by yelling, but by being the only one in the room who still holds the map. The CFO finally unmuted. Are you open to helping us stabilize this, even now? I met his gaze through the screen, then glanced just briefly at another window behind my Zoom tab, a signed, time-stamped NDA from the client. Allen's company. Sent 3 days prior. They'd reached out directly. No drama, no recruiting dance. Just a plain message from their COO. We're reassessing vendor partnerships. We trust your judgment. Would you consider serving as our independent consultant for vendor selection and renewal oversight? My response had been one word. Yes. I looked back at the screen. 3 execs staring at me like I was some kind of oracle who might still save their crumbling temple. I'm already consulting, I said calmly. Just not for you. More silence. But, I added, if it helps, I'm willing to coordinate a transition review. For your sake, not mine. Their faces twisted in some contorted mix of panic and forced professionalism. It didn't matter. I'd already detached. The umbilical cord that tied me to their incompetence had been cut the moment Chase decided his LinkedIn photo op mattered more than legal compliance. They had fumbled legacy money. I was already safeguarding it elsewhere. The room was supposed to be set for triumph. Dimmed lights, a sleek deck of slides with enough motion graphics to trigger seizures, soft ukulele music piped in through ceiling speakers to match the island tone. Chase had even arranged for the event coordinator to dim the house lights manually before his entrance, like he was the keynote at a damn TED Talk. It started unraveling before he even clicked to slide 2. The client's team, normally cordial, if not enthusiastically so, sat like stone. No smiles, no notepads, no performative head nods. Just silence. Eyes trained, not on the screen, but on each other. Every so often, someone from their side leaned in to whisper something behind a folder. No one interrupted Chase. No one asked a question. The oxygen was gone from the room, and he was too busy talking to notice he couldn't breathe. He stumbled. Not because the projector glitched or someone dropped a tray of coffee, because he knew. Somewhere around minute 11, he felt it. That shift, that undercurrent of dismissal. He could smell the disconnect. His slides on partnership synergy were bombing harder than a stand-up comic at a funeral. Then came the packet. Midway through the presentation, as Chase was rambling about elevated brand alignment, Alan McNally stood up. No announcement. Just a nod to his assistant, who began handing out printed documents to every executive at the table. One to each department lead. One to each representative from Chase's team. No one paused the presentation. No one even acknowledged it. Until someone on Chase's own side squinted down at page 1 and raised a hand. Chase, should we pause here? This looks like a revised SOW framework. Chase froze. He looked at Alan. I'm sorry, was this cleared? Alan didn't blink. It's already in effect. The new terms were short, direct, brutal. The company would retain its current services pending a 6-month review window. But all renewal activities, vendor evaluations, and contract oversight would be managed by a newly appointed independent liaison. That liaison, by name, was me. I didn't need to be there to hear the collective inhaling of breath, the quiet realization, the slow, sinking understanding that not only had Chase been bypassed, but I had been upgraded to the one role that couldn't be touched by internal politics anymore. I now had veto authority over every statement of work connected to the account. Creative, operations, procurement, nothing went forward without my review. Chase couldn't greenlight a napkin order without my sign-off. He was done. He just hadn't figured out the shape of the fall yet. After the session ended, Alan leaned over to Chase and murmured something that wasn't caught on mic, but was seen by everyone. His finger jabbed once toward the hallway, and the two disappeared into a side conference room. 10 minutes later, someone from the hotel staff said they heard yelling through the walls. Chase's voice first, high-pitched, defensive. Then Alan's, quiet but sharp, surgical. No one saw Chase again for the rest of the day. He didn't attend the dinner reception. His badge was quietly removed from the event signage. His assistant started asking others if they knew what time the return flight was rebooked for. And while he was packing his bags behind a locked door, a new file hit the company's Slack. Vendor Oversight Transition Plan, prepared by Olivia Mathers. Not angry, not dramatic, just bullet points and timelines. Quiet power etched in Helvetica. Justice hadn't shouted. It had just signed the paperwork. It was just past 11 p.m. when my phone lit up. I was sitting on the couch in my dim apartment, sipping tea gone cold, watching the city hum through my window like nothing had happened, like a whole empire hadn't just quietly tilted on its axis. The number was unfamiliar, but I knew the area code. Corporate HQ, and not the regular switchboard. I let it ring once, twice. Picked up on the third. Olivia Mathers speaking? The voice on the other end was deeper than I remembered, slower too. Russell Marks, the board chair, the same man who, 6 months ago, had walked past me in the elevator without recognizing my face. Tonight, he knew exactly who he was calling. "Ms. Mathers," he began, "I won't waste your time. We're conducting a full review of recent events, and it's clear adjustments are needed. Chase is being reassigned, effective immediately." I said nothing. Let him hang in that pause. He cleared his throat. "We'd like to formally extend an offer for you to return. We'll draft new terms. You'd have full operational oversight, direct board access, autonomy over the client account, whatever you need." I almost smiled, not because of the offer, but because of the irony. There it was, wrapped in corporate polish, a golden apology shaped like a throne. A chance to come back not as a subordinate, not as the quiet girl who triple-checked logistics, but as the power they never thought I could be. I leaned back against the couch, tucked one foot under the other, and replied as evenly as if we were discussing printer toner. "I appreciate the call, Mr. Marks, but I won't be returning." Silence. Then, "May I ask why?" "It's a conflict of interest," I said. "I work for the client now." Another pause, longer this time, and I could hear it, how the weight of those words landed like a brick in a boardroom full of empty chairs. Because what I didn't say out loud, but knew he'd already been briefed on, was that Alan's company had just issued an RFP, a full-scope vendor restructuring for the next 6 years. Logistics, operations, creative, compliance. And I was helping structure it, not as a formality, not as a reference, as the architect. I was the one shaping the language, defining the service parameters, writing the questions, evaluating the answers. And Chase's firm wasn't guaranteed a slot. I could feel Russell weighing his next words, trying to salvage dignity. He went with the safest play. "If anything changes, we'd welcome the opportunity to talk again." I let him have it. "Understood," I said. "Have a good night." I hung up. Then I silenced the phone and turned it face down. No fireworks, no champagne, just the quiet relief of gravity realigning, finally, in my favor. The offer I'd waited for, fantasized about, played out 100 ways in my head, had arrived too late. They hadn't just lost me. They'd lost the map. The flight was half empty, just the way I liked it. No branded polos, no forced small talk, just silence, recycled air, and the low hum of an aircraft heading east as the sun bled out over the Pacific behind us. I didn't bother with the in-flight drink. I didn't need to celebrate. This wasn't a victory lap. It was a homecoming. And I was bringing the future with me in a carry-on. I slid my laptop out of the seat pocket and opened the final PDF. The renewal agreement was signed, time-stamped, notarized, and more elegant than anything Chase had ever produced in his Canva-fueled career. $240 million, 6 years. With a clause buried in the first appendix that gave me permanent oversight authority, independent review rights, and direct access to the client's procurement team on any vendor relationship tied to the account. In other words, I was the bridge. If they wanted to cross it, they'd have to go through me. Not because I burned the old one, but because I built the new one from stone. The seatbelt sign pinged on, and somewhere over Arizona, my phone buzzed. One message. No punctuation, no flair, just desperation wrapped in pretense. Chase. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a few seconds, not out of indecision, just to feel the weight of how light he'd finally become. All that swagger, the fake leadership posts, the name-dropping, the hollow smirks. Stripped down to 6 words and the silence that followed them. I didn't answer. I just closed the laptop, tucked it back in my bag, and leaned against the window. Let him stew in the silence. He'd have time, plenty of it. Because the RFP process I was steering, it didn't include shortcuts for former VPs who'd fumbled the bag on live stage. By the time the plane landed, I'd already blocked the number. Back at headquarters, I'd left one last item behind. A small thing, almost forgettable. On Chase's desk, tucked under a cold coffee mug and a pile of irrelevant marketing drafts, sat a company-branded postcard. The same type we handed out during corporate retreats, with palm trees and inspirational garbage printed across the top. Except this one had a red stamp across the center. Just 6 words, clean and sharp. Next time, book all the seats. I never raised my voice, never threw a tantrum, never threatened legal action. I just rewrote the coordinates. So when they tried to find paradise again, they'd realize the island didn't exist without me.